What is up, everybody at Pass the Rock? It's your boy Ceez here yet again with a solo episode. That means yet again I cannot join my comrades for our usual weekly episode. On this day, Wednesday, that we're recording, I will be at an event, not the Rangers World Series game. Sorry, slip of tongue, getting ahead of myself. Anyway. I will not be at the Rangers ALCS Game 3 against the Houston Astros. However, I will be seeing an Astros fan, if you can call him that, Travis Scott for a comically low price tonight. Kind of as a bit. But, you know me, I love y'all. I want to give y'all some football stuff to think over. So we're doing another 4 downs with Ceez. Now, on the previous 4 downs with Ceez, I realized after I submitted the video to Patrick, fuck, I didn't actually label what was a down, and so we're going to correct that. So, we're going to start off with first down, and that is recapping the week that was. So on first down, I established the rules of the recap, which is we start by acknowledging the team with the best record and going down. Bethke called me out on it, saying, nah, this is just to further the Eagles' propaganda, but I assure you, there is no propaganda that I am pushing from the Eagles this week. They had a really ugly loss to the New York Jets, 20-14. Jalen Hurts tied for a career-high 3 interceptions in this game. The Philadelphia Eagles were leading for the majority of that game, until a sequence of events that just left your head scratching, left you wondering what the fuck was up. And that was Jalen Hurts' inexplicable 3rd interception that he threw right into the teeth of the New York Jets coverage, targeting Dallas Goedert on that play. 14-12. All you have to do is get a first down, ice the game. Get a first down, force the Jets to use their timeouts. It was a very frustrating game, especially considering that the first half was very fruitful and it looked like things were trending in a positive direction, not just for the Eagles' offense, but for their defense, who played a hell of a game. Yes, they are facing Zach Wilson-led Jets and not an Aaron Rodgers-led Jets. So there is a caveat to be thrown in there. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that Jets defense could not get the ball into the end zone, having to settle for field goal after field goal after field goal until the very end, where they let Breece Hall score so they could get the ball back in hopes of either tying the game or straight up just going for the win. Now, let's take things from the top of this game. Jalen Hurts starts on fire. I mentioned in the week's previous episode that I thought that the Philadelphia Eagles had put together their best game of the season against the Rams. That includes Jalen Hurts. I thought Jalen Hurts has been not exactly his 2021 self, but not exactly his 2022 self either. He's somewhere in between where, if 2021 was his actual rookie year, and then 2023 was the following year, and then 2022 was his 3rd year in the league, right? You're like, wow, look at this amazing trajectory. This guy is steadily improving. He's making big-time throws. He's throwing with anticipation. And that's what we were saying last season, not this season. This season, he's been more turnover-prone. He seems a lot more uncomfortable. He still is making big throws, big plays with his arms, and recently with his legs. So it makes it even more frustrating where we see this guy who just got paid what was at the time a record-setting deal not live up to the contract. Though one could say that outside of Patrick Mahomes, most quarterbacks aren't going to live up to the contract. It's like getting a sports car, right? Buying it brand new. It depreciates the moment you take it off the lot. The moment that quarterback takes the field after that huge contract extension, he starts to depreciate. right? Because you are setting expectations in the fan's mind that this is a $50 million QB, why isn't he playing like a $50 million QB? When we forget, I mean, before that, he was making jump change compared to that. But that has nothing to do with that. That's just me going on a little diatribe. Either way, another thing that was very concerning about this game from the Eagles' perspective is just the amount of injuries that continue to pile up in the secondary, in the back seven in general. They were out Darius Slay in this game. They were out Avonte Maddox, who's on IR for the rest of the season. Justin Evans, starting safety, down and out again. All right, they were going into this game thin, and they came out even thinner on the depth chart. Alrighty, so it's hard to put into words how this feels, because you can say it sucks, and it does, but it's more than that. There's a level of concern for me as a fan that I just cannot explain. But if I had to put a word to it, it's kind of gives me vibes of 2018. And for those who might have forgotten what that year was like, the Philadelphia Eagles came into the season defending Super Bowl champs, and what happens? Well, the team gets injured everywhere. And despite the fact that they suffered some crucial injuries on their way to the Super Bowl the year prior, right, they were able to make up for it. Well, lightning in a bottle. And let's be real, that was a great team, talented team. It was still kind of lightning in a bottle because you look at that roster and you're like, well, there's not elite talent everywhere. There's just really good talent everywhere. And there's elite talent in key spots like the offensive line and the defensive line. And then everywhere else is just kind of solid to okay. And they made it work. They made it work. I don't know if this version of the Eagles can make it work with where the injuries are, especially considering that they are going into the teeth of their schedule here, starting off with the Miami Dolphins. So I have my concerns. I feel like Jalen Hurts has the right mentality, the right makeup to kind of learn from this experience and not put out such a disappointing second half performance like he did. I don't necessarily have that much faith in the current iteration of the Eagles coaching staff, though. And that's not a knock on Nick Sirianni. It's more of a knock on Sean Desai and Brian Johnson. Both in their first year coordinating with the Eagles. In Brian Johnson's case, his first year coordinating offense. He is a rookie offensive play caller who was handed the keys to a team with sky-high expectations, and he is not meeting them, and I don't think he could ever have met the expectations set onto him by both the franchise and the fan base, and it's frustrating for the fans in general, because when your team has high expectations, like the Eagles had, and you see what is clearly a clunky offense, you can say their success rate is better, their EPA per drive, or their EPA per play is better, and that their points per game is just a tick lower than the season before, but it's not passing the eye test. And, as much as we can get into the analytics, the nerdiness of it all, at the end of the day, most fans just care about what they're seeing on their TV screen. And it hasn't been the best, despite a 5-1 record. And it's a good thing that they were able to get a 5-1 record, because the upcoming schedule, there's not a lot of room for error. And we're going to see where this Eagles team is really at. And if Jalen Hurts can really carry this team through. And if he can, then that gives me a lot of hope for a strong postseason run. But if he can't, then that just leaves us with a whole bunch of questions that I didn't want to ask, but were in the back of my mind coming into this season. Anyway, with that, let's move on to the next team, shall we? The Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys finished off a great night for DFW sports fans everywhere. The Texas Rangers went into Houston, Game 2, came out with a 5-4 victory, immediately leading into the Dallas Cowboys up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, this was pretty much a home game for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's be real, LA is their second home. Bethke likes to say they're their first home. Cowboy fans, feel free to argue with him in the comments of this video, or any video. But for the sake of this one, we're just going to call it a second home game. Alrighty. Now, in this game, Dak Prescott looked like the Dak Prescott that fans of his defend, right? And rightfully so. You can argue that he is a top 10 quarterback, definitely top 15. He is definitely a top half of the league starter. What his ceiling is physically and what his ceiling is from what he can produce on the field, that remains in question and has been in question for a long time now. But in this game, he played well enough, right? This is arguably his best game of the season. 21 of 30, 272, a touchdown, 9 yards completion, and then he did damage on his legs. 7 carries for 40 yards, punched it into the end zone on one occasion, and even rounded off an 18-yard run. So, pretty good, right? Pretty good. Offensive line, not so good. Giving up 5 sacks. Now, you give him 5 sacks against a good team, you're probably not winning that game. However, they were fortunate enough to be facing the Los Angeles Chargers, who are a bad team masquerading around as a good team solely because they are competitive and because they have a top 5 talent at quarterback who, unfortunately for Chargers fans, the 10 of you that are out there, he didn't play like that. Let's just look at some of the numbers real quick. Justin Herbert, 22 of 37, 227 yards, 6 yards per completion, 2 TDs, an interception, and 1 sack. That 1 sack is not emblematic of what actually happened. He was pressured all night. He was able to get the ball out of his hands quickly, but he was missing on some deep shots. He was missing on some uncharacteristic throws that he would normally make. And the Dallas Cowboys defense made sure that they were not going to let those misses go to waste. They were able to get off the field, and they were able to get the Cowboys offense back onto the field. However, the Cowboys offensive line, like I mentioned earlier, not so great, both in pass protection and in run blocking. You can look at their final number of the night, 96 yards rushing as an offense on 26 carries. That's good for 3.7 yards a carry. This Chargers defense is not a great defense. They have some big names, yes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Brandon Staley has been consistent in making sure that he's putting out a great unit. Matter of fact, this has been a unit that has been disappointing year after year, right? Because like I said, there's a lot of talent, but there's not a lot of production. And you could almost say that that's something that you could say about the Dallas Cowboys. You know, the Chargers kind of mirrored the Cowboys in that way for the better part of 2 decades, where they're putting out these talented rosters and they haven't been able to really make much of it. But the Cowboys, coming off a brutal loss, were able to shake it off on short rest and get the win. The Chargers had a bye week coming into this. They had so much time to prepare. And they lay an egg. That tells you just a little bit about there are some differences in these teams that, you know, as many similarities as that you can make between the two teams over the course of a decade and a half plus. When it matters, at least in the regular season, the Cowboys do bounce back from these types of losses. And that's a testament to the team building, the talent. Now, as much praise as I'm giving them on this, I still gotta be critical of the coaching. Mike McCarthy just still does not give me any confidence. I'm not a Cowboys fan, obviously, but just looking at the outside in, he may have built a culture of, you know, toughness, like tough attitude, blue collar mentality. However, he still lacks in a lot of areas, from his game management, especially at the end of the first half, where they had a timeout, around 8 seconds left. They had plenty of time to take a shot in the end zone, and he settled for a field goal. I don't like when coaches just settle for less points. Let's just do some math, okay? If you score a field goal and the team that, is trailing is still down a score, that field goal really didn't accomplish much. Get a touchdown, and now the team that's trailing is down 2 scores. You've accomplished so much more, right? And it's that conservative nature of his that really irks me. And it's the lack of creativity on offense that he brings. He brings an old philosophy, something that worked in the 2010, 11, 12 era. It's not going to work in 2023 unless you just have superior talent across the board. And in some cases, yeah, that works. And in other cases, you come out flat and you come out uninspired. So that is something that, for Cowboys fans, they should hope that gets addressed as the season progresses. Will it? I don't know. But for right now, Cowboys fans, your team is 4-2. You're only a game behind in the division. There's still a lot that can be done on y'all's side that can get you into the playoffs in a good spot. So, with that said, let's move on to the last and final game of first down, and that is the Minnesota Vikings against the Chicago Bears. Now, what can I say? Those who have stuck with the pod know I'm a fan of Justin Fields, and I was really happy for him for the last 2 weeks prior to this game of his progress. He was putting up some numbers. He was making some big-time throws. I was thinking, all right, here comes the Minnesota Vikings. On paper, schematically, the Vikings do present a problem for him on the defensive side. That's a blitz-happy team, and he is still not really up to speed when it comes to processing defenses that are just throwing the kitchen sink at him. But this could have set up for an opportunity for him to take a continuous step in the right direction. And prior to his injury, none of that. So, to the benefit of Patrick and his Minnesota Vikings, they were able to take advantage of that. They won in a real ugly game, 19-13. However, the result of the game was never really in doubt, especially when Fields went down. Kirk did what he does. He beats bad teams. And shout out to the Texas Rangers and Patrick, who is both a Rangers fan and a Vikings fan, gave some credit to Creed for how the game went out. So, with that said, let's go a little bit into some of these numbers here from the game. Like I said, Kirk does what he does best, and that's beat bad teams. But he didn't have to do too much in this game. He only went 21 of 31 for 181 yards and a TD. Alexander Madison in the run game really didn't do anything to help. But you know who did? TJ Hawkinson. With Justin Jefferson gone and out for a couple games due to being on IR, he stepped up and became the number 1 target. Jordan Addison was able to get a touchdown. The rookie continues to build upon a really strong season. The offensive line held up, only allowing 2 sacks. Still no push in the run game. It's difficult. But you know what? Here's what they were able to do on the flip side. They were able to get 5 sacks. Able to pressure Justin Fields into fumbling the football, throwing an interception. They did what they had to do to get this game and make up ground in what is still an NFC that's not really pulling away from each other yet. I don't think the Vikings have a chance of winning the division unless something like Jared Goff getting hurt, because the Lions are the real deal. But there is always an opportunity to get into the wild card as the 7th seed. So we will see if the Vikings can make a playoff push, especially with Kirk's vow to not waive his no trade clause, looking like he's going to stick around for this final season with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, if you're a Vikings fan, depending on what side of the fence you are, either you love hearing that because you want to see your team be in the playoffs, or you want your team in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Where you land on that spectrum, that's up to you. No judgment on whichever one you want to land on. However, I will say this. The biggest mistake I think any team in the NFL can do is be right in the middle. Either you're going to be really, really good, or you want to be really, really bad. Really, really good teams for the success. Really, really bad teams for the opportunity to rebuild your team by getting elite blue chip prospects through high draft position. You want as many darts at the board as possible to build your team up. I don't know what the Vikings are trying to do. I don't know if they're a really, really good team. Or rather, they want to be a really, really good team. Because I don't think they are. But I don't think they are capable of being a really, really, really bad team. So they're going to have to really tread carefully with the direction of the franchise this season, because it could have some really big ramifications going into the offseason if they're not careful with where they want to be. But with that said, let's go ahead and conclude first down and move on to second down, where we're talking rookie QBs. Here in second down, it's only right that I mention that at the time of this recording, Anthony Richardson, rookie quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, is out for the season due to surgery on his throwing shoulder. That is a huge, huge blow for the Colts and for him. For somebody who only had under 400 pass attempts in college, the one thing that he so desperately needed, and that every QB needs, is reps. They need reps to develop, right? There's only so much that you can get from sitting on the bench. We're seeing that with Jordan Love. Yes, it does work for some quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, one of the biggest examples. But with other quarterbacks, they just need the reps. Look at Russell Wilson. He didn't have any time to sit behind an established veteran. Got thrusted into action, succeeded. Those are two extremes, yes. Because typically the route of a rookie quarterback is somewhere more in the middle, somewhere more in the lines of you kind of want him to sit a little bit then play. Otherwise, it's going to be just a mess, depending on the situation, right? Look at Brock Purdy. When he was a rookie QB, thrust into action, 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. Dog, he had a all-star lineup. All-star lineup, both on the field and on the sidelines, right? He had a coach that knew what he was doing with a quarterback that was limited. So, for some of these guys, I just wish that these front offices and these coaches would just look at their team. Just look at their team and ask themselves, are my guys set up for success, or are they set up to fail? And what do I mean by that? Well, are you throwing your rookie QB behind an atrocious, awful offensive line? What do you get? You're probably going to get Derek Carr. Or David Carr. Freudian slip there, I think. Is that how you use that? Probably not how you use that term. Whatever. But you can ruin a quarterback's confidence forever. Right? Look at Sam Darnold. He was behind a poor offensive line. Poor weapons on the outside. And what happened? He became one of the worst quarterbacks we have ever seen. And some people may say, there's no way he's that bad. By every statistical measure, he's one of the worst quarterbacks we have ever seen come out of the draft. He just so happens to have good build, good athleticism, good arm strength. And it makes you wonder, right? The flashes, the few flashes he's had, make you wonder. Well, you're probably thinking, Ceez, I thought you were talking about rookie quarterbacks this season. You only just mentioned Anthony Richardson. Well, I'm getting to that. Anthony Richardson had a very decent supporting cast, and he was looking like a real baller. You may look at his numbers, but his numbers do not tell the full story. You look at some of those plays, the way that he manipulates safeties with his eyes, the way he uncorks a football with strength unparalleled, right? Mahomes, Josh Allen, Anthony Richardson, I think those are the three best arms in the league. Bar none. You just look at the way the ball comes out of their hands. Look at the velocity they get. Look how far they can push the ball without any effort. Unreal. His athleticism is unreal. His arm is unreal. And he looked like he was going to get better. But unfortunately, his season has been marred by injuries, and now it's over. And this is really crucial for the Colts. If they want success with him this offseason, they need to build up that offensive line, and they need to go get a true number one receiver so they can get the most out of Anthony Richardson. Because I think he's in the right hands with Shane Steichen. But let's move on to the quarterbacks that are still playing. Bryce Young. As y'all know, I was just kind of on a little rant about poor situations. I don't think a rookie QB this year got put into a worse situation than Bryce Young. And you may be thinking, well, they gave him Miles Sanders, they have Chuba Hubbard, Adam Thielen looks like he's, kind of having like a good season as a number one receiver, even though he's probably past that point of being a number one receiver. But that offensive line is bad, and the rest of those weapons are bad. And Bryce Young went to the wrong coaching staff. If you haven't seen it, there's been tweets put out there, videos out there of the Panthers coaching staff talking to CJ Stroud, saying, hey, can't wait for you to get a house in Charlotte, or something along the lines. Kind of hinting that they're going to take him with the first overall pick. And that would have been the right choice. Why? Because of Frank Reich. Frank Reich's entire history of working with quarterbacks are working with tall quarterbacks who can see over the line. He does not have to create an offense to essentially accommodate a QB of a shorter stature. He's never had to do that. Not as a head coach or as the lead play caller. Not one time. And he was thrusted upon the responsibility of developing Bryce Young by ownership. The coaching staff clearly wanted one guy. Ownership wanted another. And now you put Bryce Young, who was a really, really good QB in college, in a terrible situation. And you gotta hope that the coaching staff can make the best of it. But if I was that coaching staff, this is one of these occasions where, you know what, Bryce Young, you've gotten reps. You've gotten some reps. They're not good reps. But I want to save you from yourself right now. I want to save you from this bad situation. Sit behind Andy Dalton. Try to learn what you can. If he goes down, you're going back in. But this is not the most cohesive environment for you to succeed in. And if you want your number one overall pick that you gave up a lot for, then damn it, you better do something to make sure that you don't create bad habits or ruin his confidence. Alright? So, with that said, let's talk about it. CJ Stroud. Oh, this dude could very well lead the Houston Texans to the playoffs, despite having an offensive line that's missing four of their projected starters. They do not have a true number one wide receiver. Their number one target getter right now is Nico Collins. Nico Collins. My brothers in Christ, I would have never expected Nico Collins to be a star, and I don't think he is. I don't think if you put Nico Collins right now anywhere in the league that's not as devoid of talent, or to the same level of devoid of talent as the Texans are on the outside, I don't think he cracks the number 3 spot. Now, that I could just be underestimating him, and I need to put some more effort into watching Houston Texans and Nico Collins tape. But just in general, that guy should not be a number 1 receiver. A good number 2 receiver develop into one of those, and maybe that's what's happening, right? Maybe we are a season or 2 away from the Texans able to go get a big fish, a number 1 wide receiver for CJ Stroud. In the meantime, Nico Collins is the placeholder, and you know what? It is working. The Texans are 3-3. CJ Stroud broke Dak Prescott's record of consecutive throws without an interception in their first year of starting. He is right now, just so you guys can get an idea, he is 4th in the league in passing yards. 4th, right? All right, he has a 9-1 TD ratio. His QBR, kind of middle of the pack, 55.5. His passer rating, 96.4. Really good passer rating, especially for a rookie, right? You may want to see a better completion percentage from him. He's somewhere at a 59.6%. Again, though, when you take into consideration what he has to work with, his numbers are astounding. The Texans got the best quarterback in this year, or this past year's draft class, right? Dude, this AFC South is winnable. The Jaguars are very inconsistent. The Colts are done. Gardner Minshew's not leading them to the playoffs. The Tennessee Titans are cooked, right? They might make it ugly for other teams. You know, they might play spoiler to other teams. But if anybody's going to finish in last place, it's probably the Titans, the way things are going right now. If the Texans under D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud get into the playoffs, you're talking Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. Bar none. This is one of these occasions where the environment, or not necessarily the environment, but the supporting cast, on paper, is too atrocious. They're like, there's no way CJ Stroud is going to fail, right? I mentioned that earlier. That supporting cast has a lot to do with the success of quarterbacks. But you look at CJ Stroud and he is just too good to fail. And that's the sign. That's the sign that you got your guy. He is the Texans guy. He is one of those exceptions to the rules that we've seen. And part of that has to do with D'Amico Ryans putting together a great staff, putting together the right culture. Shout out to that guy. And shout out to CJ Stroud, who is clearly the guy in this class. Now, going forward in the future, do I think he will still be the best QB from his class? Maybe. If Anthony Richardson can hit his ceiling, then no. But that's a big if. So for right now, Texans fans, enjoy this. I think you guys got the best QB for the moment. And probably for the next couple of years anyway. So, hey, CJ Stroud, Rookie of the Year, Texans making the playoffs as a dark horse. What a time to be a Texans fan. Especially considering all the shit that organization has put the fan base through. So, that concludes second down. Let's move on to the next. Third down. Watch it. Skip it. Train wreck. Now, for this week's Watch It, Skip It, Train Wreck, it's got a little difficult, actually. I don't want to be a homer and put the Eagles as a must-watch, because I don't think it will be. Now, as you probably know, or if you've probably been paying attention, my must-watch selections have been quite a bit of a letdown. Because on paper, you think the teams that you see are going to put on a dazzling football game, and then it's like either an okay to a not so great. So, you may be thinking, Ceez, what could you possibly pick then? What are you going to do for the most must-watch game of the week? I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And that is, I am picking the Detroit Lions against the Baltimore Ravens. We are going to hope that this team, or this game featuring a 5-1 Lions and a 4-2 Baltimore Ravens team, puts up some fireworks. Now, I don't expect a high-scoring game, but what I do expect is big plays made by Lamar Jackson, who, if you guys are watching him play, if you're watching him play right now, he is out of his fucking mind throwing the ball. And it's unfortunate that his receivers are just not making the plays. But he is throwing the way that I don't think anybody foresaw him throw. Even his biggest supporters, definitely not his biggest detractors. But he has been on one. He has fully acclimated into what is a more modern NFL passing game under Todd Monken than what he had with Greg Roman. He has actual NFL passing concepts, and he's just been knocking it out of the park. Unfortunately, the numbers that you see him put out aren't necessarily wowing you, but then you got to think about it. Outside of Zay Flowers, we're not really seeing any production from Rashad Bateman, definitely not from OBJ, Mark Andrews. We're just not seeing the supporting cast, which was billed as his best supporting cast since he's entered the league. They haven't stepped up to help him. And so it's frustrating for maybe not just him, but the fans in general. So hopefully they're able to put together a great game, because they are 4-2. And they're definitely going to look to bounce back from an ugly loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff. Jared Goff, listen, I get it. It's Jared Goff. We know that he has some limitations, but if you look at this Lions team, outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have just in terms of names, right? He doesn't have the big names that he had when he was with the Rams. And yet, he is just as successful now as he was then, if not more so. I'm going to put some respect on Jared Goff's name. I'm not saying he's, a top 5 quarterback. Maybe not even a top 10. Top 12. Either way, I think he's been playing great for this Lions team. He is the heart and soul of that offense, bar none. And the fact that he's got them in this position, they are looking like they are the contenders that the hype train in the preseason made them out to be. And if they are able to get this win, that's only going to continue to build their resume and their case as they challenge for the number 1 seed in the NFC. So, that is my most must-watch game for Week 7. Now, what's the most skippable game? The game that, if it's the only game on, you should just probably go outside and watch the grass grow. Well, that is a bit of a conundrum, because there are plenty of stinkers. So, you have Browns-Colts. I know the Browns just had a massive upset of the 49ers. However, if P.J. Walker is still the one playing, that's going to be some ugly football. Yes, if you love great defense, you're going to get that. If you like watching great offense, you're not going to get that from the Browns, and you're not going to get that from the Gardner Minshew-led Colts. That's just not happening. You have Commanders-Giants. My brothers in Christ. You talk about just that could be a train wreck. But no, it's just, I just can't. I just don't see it, right? Steelers Rams. They both have 3 wins. No. The real answer to this question, it's a tie. It's a tie. It's a tie between the Green Bay Packers and the Denver Broncos. 2 teams who just stink. They just are bad. The Broncos are bad. They are one of the worst teams in the league. If Jordan Love cannot have a career game against this Broncos defense, one of the worst defenses I think I've ever seen, he's not the guy. And Green Bay needs to move on. Which sucks, but that's just the thick of things. I'm not saying, it's what, his 6th or 7th career start, something like that. If he can't put together a great game against a bad team, I have no hope that he can put together a good game against a great team. No. And especially being one of the few afternoon games on Sunday, that's just not it. And you may be thinking, well, Ceez, what is it tied with? Well, it probably could be worse, honestly. And that's the 3-3 Raiders, which, how the fuck are they 3-3? That's just a terrible team. Like, I watch them, and they're just not, there's nothing there outside of Devontae Adams. They have a bad coach. They have a bad defense. Max Crosby's great, but, that's still not a good defense. They don't have a good line. They're just not good. And yet, they're afloat at 3-3 against the Chicago Bears. Now, again, it's a 1-5 Bears team. I want to believe in Justin Fields. I do. If he's able to play in this game, I know he left with a dislocated finger. If he's able to play in this game, I hope he's able to take advantage of a bad team. If he's not able to play in this game, then there is really nothing the Bears have on offense that could even remotely make this game interesting. I know DJ Moore went on an incredible 2-game run, but that's what Justin Fields is throwing him the ball. Now, if they have to settle for, hold on, let me get this backup's name, because it's just, I don't even know his name. It's Tyson Bagent. Out of Shepherd College. Really? No. You know what? I take back what I said about the previous game. This is the most unwatchable game that we have on this slate of games for Sunday. Skip Chicago and Las Vegas. Chicago fans, Raiders fans, just do something else with your afternoon, for your sake. Anyway, now it's time for the biggest train wreck of Week 7. I don't want to run on too long. I'm going to be real. I'm just keep it real. I think the Eagles-Dolphins is going to be a train wreck. And you're thinking, Ceez, it's 2 5-1 teams. They both have incredible talent at the skill positions: receiver, tight end, running back. Yeah, you do. However, I've seen enough Eagles games this season. I got this gut feeling, that they are about to reel. They are about to spiral. And sure, if Bethke was here, he would probably say, oh, this is going to be most much watch for him, because that Dolphins team's probably going to put up a bunch of points on that defense. And yeah, but part of the train wreck is the whole nature of it's so bad, you can't help but look. And this game, which is an island game, it's the Sunday Night Football game, nothing else on. It's going to be so bad, but I won't be able to look away as I watch the Miami Dolphins put up a bunch of points on these Philadelphia Eagles. Which leads me into 4th down as we preview this game. The Philadelphia Eagles are coming in hurt. hurt everywhere. Lane Johnson's down, right? He is the most important offensive lineman on that team, bar none. He's going to be out for this game with a high ankle sprain. You still have Sua Opeta coming in for Cam Driggins. So you have Sua Opeta, a backup guard, and you probably have Jack Driscoll, the backup right tackle, on the same side of the line. That's just not good. If Vic Fangio knows what he's doing, he's going to put all of the pressure on that side of the line. And he's going to challenge Jalen Hurts to get the ball out as quickly as possible, which feeds into his defensive philosophy of keep the big plays from happening, let them dink and dunk their way. And that's one thing the Philadelphia Eagles have not been good at. It's the short to intermediate passing game. They've been great at the deep ball, but that's a team that's too overly reliant on the deep ball. And there's just not a lot of creativity in getting the ball into the hands of their playmakers within the first 10 yards. I just don't know how they're going to get through with this, right? The only way that this Philadelphia Eagles team has a chance against the Dolphins is that they are able to get home on Tua Tagovailoa, who has the quickest time to throw in the NFL. This is a team that is coming in with a weak secondary. Darius Slay, I don't know if he will play or not. He was out against the Jets. Even if he's there, he's up against Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. Their slot situation is terrible. Mike McDaniels is one of the most creative play callers in the league. You know for a fact that he's going to try to find a way to just get his best player on the Eagles' worst defender. Hell, he may not even have to do that. Because Tyreek Hill has game-changing speed. He'll probably run by either James Bradbury or Darius Slay, who are on the wrong side of 30, and it's looking like it this season. They have not been great. They have been good, okay, average, not great. And you need to come up with your best A game if you hope to stop this Miami Dolphins offense that is capable of putting points on the board in a hurry. No lead is truly safe for them unless you are able to get the Tua Tagovailoa, if you're able to get him rattled. And if the Eagles have any chance of doing that, it's through their defensive line. If their defensive line can get to Tua, then this might be a game of the year candidate. But I just don't know if they can. So I'm predicting that the Miami Dolphins hand the Eagles their second consecutive loss of the season. I'm thinking it's going to be 35-21 in the favor of the Miami Dolphins. Now, let's move on to our last preview of the week. All right, to finish fourth down, Cowboys are on a bye this week, so, that less work for me to do. Patrick, this is for you, buddy. This is for you. 1 second. Buddy. I'm doing it. I'm putting on the Randy Moss jersey. Skull Vikings. Vikings against the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Listen, do I think realistically they have a chance to win this game? Probably not. However, as big of a doubter of the Vikings I am, I'm a bigger hater of the San Francisco 49ers. So, this is me rooting for the Minnesota Vikings to upset the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think it's going to happen. Sorry. Put on the jersey. Get you all riled up. Like, oh man, Ceez is supporting the Vikings. I'm rooting for them to win. I don't think that they can win, despite the fact that Christian McCaffrey could be coming into this game either limping or not at all. We'll have to see what shows up on the injury reports. If something has come up at the time of recording, then hopefully there's like something here or there saying that, oh, he's been ruled out or something. If not, disregard this. And then we also have Deebo Samuel, who did leave the Cleveland Browns game limping as well. I don't know for sure if they'll be missing both guys or just one guy, but you still have George Kittle, you still have Brandon Ayuk, and you still have Kyle Shanahan, who's never really needed an elite running back, although one could argue that Christian McCaffrey is truly the piece that makes the San Francisco 49ers offense go, right? And Brock Purdy is going to see more blitzes in this game than I think he's ever seen in his entire life. So, if Brian Flores can get Brock Purdy rattled, force him into making throws that he may not make otherwise under different conditions, well, we'll see a Brock Purdy who, like last week was just emblematic of like, hey, elite QBs don't look like this typically, right? For all the Brock Purdy supporters, the guy did not play well in bad weather. And you're like, well, Ceez, how many quarterbacks play well in bad weather? Well, here's the thing. It's not so much that, it's just so much more like his physical limitations that he brings to the table, which, small hands, 9 1/4 inch, did not help him in wet weather. And it certainly did not help when he was facing that ruthless Cleveland Browns pass rush. I know they didn't put up like immense numbers, but Brock Purdy was rattled. He was rattled. He was off. If the Vikings can do the same, and that's a big if, well, hey, any given Sunday, right? We'll see. That San Francisco 49ers defense is really good. That Minnesota Vikings offensive line is not very good. So you look at it and everything's pointing in the San Francisco 49ers way, but you never know what could happen. I would feel more confident in a Vikings upset if Justin Jefferson was available. He's not. So we'll just see what happens. This is a game that can get ugly quick for the Vikings if they don't get home on Purdy. And if they don't take it to the house when Kirk Cousins is on the field. So, Kirk Cousins, you're going to need to play the game of your life against this super stacked 49ers team. Brian Flores, you're going to need to coordinate the game of your life to stop this 49ers offense. But here's the thing. You can always count on the San Francisco 49ers to always stumble when you don't expect them to, just like last week against the Cleveland Browns, led by a backup QB in PJ Walker. Will they bounce back? Probably. Do I hope they bounce back? Absolutely the fuck not. So, with that said, Skol Vikings, thank you, everybody, for sticking with me on 4 Downs with Ceez, part of Pass the Rock. One last thing. Go and take it, Rangers. Game 3, Game 4 here in Arlington, praying for a sweep. If not, I'm still all on board. Love what the Rangers are doing. Fellas, good luck with tonight's episode, whenever you see this. And yeah, we will see you next week, probably, ? I'll be there, available. Patrick, however, will be seeing Wimby live. So we'll see what we have next week for you. If not, don't worry, guys. We're always going to come back stronger than ever, ready to give you more content here at Pass the Rock. Later.